The hills north of Aleppo are dry and sharp-edged, their slopes traced by thorn and limestone, wind-scoured and pale beneath the Syrian sun. Among these hills, near the village of Ain Dara, lie the remains of a sanctuary so old that its builders left no name behind. Its stones, though broken, still rise in deliberate order, basalt steps worn down by time, lion carvings crouching on pedestals, fragments of columns fallen where once they upheld timbered roofs. The site has long been linked to the Iron Age kingdoms that ruled this borderland between the Hittite world and Aram, its walls standing for nearly 3,000 years before war, and looters stripped much of it bare. But even in ruin, it offers a mystery that has resisted explanation. At the threshold of the temple, carved deep into the stone pavement, are 3 footprints, each one massive, each one set in a stride, as though a being far larger than any human had walked across the sanctuary floor. The prints are not crude, they are shaped with anatomical precision, toes arched, heel rounded. The distance between them suggests a stride more than 3 times the length of a man's. One appears just outside the entrance, the second within the portico, the third near the doorway into the inner chamber. The implication, unmistakable yet impossible, is that some immense figure entered the temple, left foot, right foot, then stood before the altar. There are no corresponding prints leading away. Archaeologists uncovered the temple in the 1950s. Built between the 10th and 8th centuries BC, it belonged to a Syro-Hittite city-state that flourished along the frontier of great empires. The structure shared architectural features with what little is known of Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. A tripartite layout, an elevated platform, a portico flanked by statues of lions and sphinxes, and a central cellar or inner sanctum. The dimensions of the Ain Dara temple closely match those given in biblical descriptions, yet no inscription survives to name the deity to whom it was dedicated. Scholars assume it honoured Ishtar or a regional storm god, possibly Hadad, but the absence of textual confirmation has kept the question open. The footprint carvings received little attention in early reports. They were noted, measured, photographed, but seldom studied in depth. There was no obvious precedent. No other Near Eastern temple of the period featured such markings. In later scholarship, they were sometimes dismissed as decorative, symbolic, or simply anomalous, an artistic flourish unrelated to ritual or theology. But the scale and placement of the prints resist such dismissal. They are not hidden, they are not marginal. They form a path across the temple's holiest space. Interpretations have varied. One view holds that the prints were intended to represent the invisible presence of a god entering the sanctuary. In many ancient Near Eastern cultures, deities were believed to inhabit their temples in a literal sense, descending from the heavens to rest upon the sacred podium or throne. The footprints, in this reading, may have marked the moment of divine arrival, an image not for human imitation but for divine embodiment. The god steps into the space. The god stands at the altar. Worship follows. Others have suggested that the carvings were part of a ritual drama. In some Mesopotamian texts, festivals included the ceremonial procession of statues from temple to temple. Priests moved the effigy of the god along a prescribed route, reenacting its journey from one domain to another. Perhaps at Ain Dara a similar rite occurred, and the footprints served as symbolic markers of the god's path into the sanctum. If so, they were both physical and performative, a guide for ceremony, a permanent reminder of an ephemeral act. A third theory posits that the prints were commemorative, not of a god, but of a king or priest whose role merged the human and the divine. Rulers in the ancient Near East often claimed semi-divine status. To step where the god stepped was a privilege, and to leave one's mark at the site of the god's appearance was an assertion of authority. In this reading, the footprints might memorialize a moment of union between king and deity, an embodied theology carved into the floor itself. But no text has been found to explain them. No tablet, no inscription, no dedicatory plaque. The meaning of the footprints remains speculative, anchored only by their undeniable presence and context. The temple itself suffered irreversible damage in recent years. In 2018, A Turkish airstrike during the conflict in Afrin destroyed much of the remaining structure. Satellite images showed the crater where the portico once stood. Columns were shattered, reliefs were pulverized. The footprints, if they survived, now lie beneath rubble. Whatever ritual meaning they once held, whatever act of reverence they once embodied, has been silenced not by time but by war. Yet the images remain, photographed, sketched, documented, and they continue to pose the same question. What did those who carved them believe they were showing? Was it myth, metaphor, or theology? A symbol of divine presence, a mark of sacred drama, or a trace of forgotten kingship? The prints refuse easy interpretation. They are too deliberate to ignore, too singular to explain away. They suggest a vision of worship that involved not just prayer and offering, but movement and weight, the imagined presence of a being larger than life stepping into a space built for reverence, and then stopping, at the threshold of the holiest place, standing, not walking onward, as if to remind all who entered that the first step into the sacred was not taken by man.